So he brings Keefe in on a third case here, and I'm sorry if this is getting confusing because it's fucking moronic.
Let me go back. I'll listen to this
but
shit.
Greg Kading does a proffer with Keefe, okay?
Damn. Did I go up or something?
LAPD to control the narrative, to completely boil it down to its essence, is about $1 billion cover-up, right? Because that's what Big probably is worth, arguably. You know, it's a horrific thing to say if someone's life is worth X, but he you know, at the time, I think when Keith Clinkscales of Vibe testified at the civil trial, he put his net worth at 500 million, right? You know, at that time. Yeah. So what the dossier really goes into is this story in a real detail oriented way, right? But also told by interviews that I did with various characters that also
see if he got some information, he's privy to some information that we probably haven't heard before. So all I'm gonna say is let's hear Mr. Don Sikorsky. Let's hear Don Sikorsky out, man. Let's hear what he got to say, because by him being an investigative journalist, a lot of time they get access to a whole lot of stuff, man, from FBI agents to heads of companies or whatever they need.
Also supported Phil's narrative and story. People like Sergio Robledo, who was the Wallace family private investigator. People like Richard Valderrama, who worked for the LA County Sheriff's Office as one of the top gang investigators in Compton, right? And had all of that intel about what was going on with Reggie, what was going on with Suge, what was going on with Mac Perez, all of that shit. Fascinating guy, you know. You know, you have people like Mario Hammonds, who, you know, is also around and is a part of the podcast, Kenneth Boagny. So I started in a strategic way to tell Phil's story, but also bring in all of these other voices that had other information that was really fascinating, you know? Right. And I thought told a pretty updated story about really not so much, well, you know, on that night, Biggie's car was here and blah, 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 but the cover-up of the LAPD.
That's the whole point that I was looking for, because it's clearly a cover-up on somebody's end somewhere, man.
And the U.S. Attorney's Office in Los Angeles, and how they were able to pull it off, you know, and get away with it, and still continue to get away with it today.
Yeah, that's very true. And like I said, I was fascinated. I'd be waiting like midnight, whenever it is the next day, I'm waiting for the next episode to drop, because that was the first time I felt like I was getting the real story.
Hey, joke, no joke. Bro, you hit it on the nail right there when you said you felt like you was getting the real story. And that's all I'm saying. So people who ride with the old story, y'all not going to agree with this.
Behind what took place outside of what Russell Poole had done. Then after Russell Poole, is this whole crazy ass bullshit ass story comes out that is like ridiculous. Now, getting back to Greg Kading, right? I don't believe nothing Greg Kading say, right?
Well, we agree again, man.
For one, to me, he's a dirty cop. Like the way he goes about getting confessions. Like, let's just go with the first one, right? First of all, let me ask you this question: do you know was Reggie the suspect and the notorious B.I.G. or Christopher Wallace murder? Was he a suspect in it? And did Greg Kading go to Reggie and Reggie feed him these theories about Southside killed Biggie in retaliation of Tupac, and then he
Before you even answer that, I can tell you, yeah, that's 8 times out of 10. That's how it went.
turned around and said, "Oh no, well, you know, it was Poochie." Like, isn't this all being fed from Reggie allegedly?
Well, it's obvious. Here's what I'll say. It's obvious, and obviously I don't know in terms of a timeline, right? But it is obvious that when Phil starts this investigation and he starts to look into all of this stuff, that Reggie is in the middle of it, you know? And what
Reggie is always in the middle, man. Reggie is a smooth guy, man.
what also I think happened is close to what you're saying, right? Is Greg Kading, you know, when he is doing what he's quote unquote supposed to be doing, which is investigating the murder of Biggie, what he really was doing was he was a pawn by the bosses at the LAPD.
Now I heard that, man. I believe he was a willing pawn
To control the narrative, to completely control the narrative, because
right?
prior to doing the Biggie case, Kading had a few cases, specifically a case by a guy by the name of Ramos, who was this big narcotics trafficker in South Central. And Kading fucked that case up so bad that the district attorney wanted nothing to do with him. He basically, from what I've been told, was kind of like, you know, when cops get a reputation or a record where they won't be allowed to testify in court because they've lied.
Damn.
Or they've lied in reports, or they've done stupid shit in investigations. Kading got to that level, okay? So I was having a conversation today that what I think he realized was that his time at the LAPD was basically he was out the door, okay? And secondarily to that, he was kind of this pawn that was being used by the LAPD. And he said, you know what? I'm going to write a book. I'm gonna make money from being the guy who was sort of put onto this for God knows what reason. I don't know. And
to make the lawsuit disappear.
Yeah. He started operating as if you were gonna write a book.
Right.
And what's important about this is this Keefe D proffer. Which is like completely from what, you know, in
So who okayed and gave you the power to get Keefe D this proffer? And who all did this proffer benefit other than Keefe D?
About this, because I want to be clear. The Tupac stuff, I'm just starting, or I have obviously a lot of knowledge because they're, you know, somehow intertwined. But I don't have half of the knowledge, you know, that I do in the Biggie stuff, that I do in the Pac stuff. But I have, you know, a podcast that will come out season 3 about Tupac. That's called Tupac versus Compton. That will go into a bigger story about Compton and the murder of Pac. Well, some of this stuff will come in. But Greg Kading does a proffer with Keefe D. Okay. Now, this proffer that he does with the FBI, okay, as a part of a drug case. It has nothing to do with Tupac. It has nothing to do with the Tupac case at all.
Right.
And second to that, Greg Kading is not, as an LAPD detective, is not supposed to be investigating the murder of Tupac. Remember, his job.
Let's go back, man. I keep telling y'all, it's some fishy shit going on. Y'all notice I've been adamant about Greg Kading and Keefe D and what made him even approach him. And man, it's getting crazy.
I want to be clear. The Tupac stuff, I'm just starting, or I have obviously a lot of knowledge because they're, somehow intertwined, but I don't have half of the knowledge, that I do in the Biggie stuff, that I do in the Pac stuff. But I have, a podcast that will come out season 3 about Tupac. That's called Tupac versus Compton. That will go into a bigger story about Compton and the murder of Pac. Well, some of this stuff will come in. But Greg Kading does a proffer with Keefe D. Okay. Now, this proffer that he does with the FBI, okay, as a part of a drug case. It has nothing to do with Tupac. It has nothing to do with the Tupac case at all. And second to that, Greg Kading is not, as an LAPD detective, is not supposed to be investigating the murder of Tupac. Remember, his job is to fucking investigate the murder of Biggie.
Right.
So he brings Keefe D in on a third case here. And I'm sorry if this is getting confusing because it's fucking moronic. And he gets Keefe D to proffer on this thing. And all of a sudden, Keefe D starts telling this story about fucking Tupac and the night Tupac is killed. Well, guess what?
Wait. Not necessarily. No.
Man, say, if I was a white man, and because a lot of this stuff I've been saying, if I was a white guy, maybe y'all would take what I'm saying, to heart a little better. Because I bet you it's a lot of y'all watching this right now. Y'all like, oh, okay, I get it now.
Hold on. Now, I know a little bit more about this case, right?
Right.
So, Greg Kading just like Teresa Swan, his tactic is to catch you dirty to get you to talk, right?
Yeah.
So he ran up on her. She did some fraud or whatever, this, that, and other. And then he writes a statement saying Poochie wrote this statement confessing to killing Biggie, right? And he shows it to her. Now he knows this is complete bullshit because he wrote it. And she goes, oh, yeah, that's what Poochie said. Yeah, everything Poochie says is the truth. Right there, you should have known she's full of shit because you made it up. Right. He took that as a confession and told the world, oh, Poochie killed Biggie. Okay.
Bro, these people are wild out here. Y'all think the criminals are wild. Shit, the authorities seem to be wilder than the criminals.
Because Teresa Swan confessed to the statement that, nigga, that statement is fucking fake, bro. You made it up. So what did she confess to that never happened? Because Poochie never wrote and never confessed to it. That came from Reggie. Reggie told him, oh, Teresa Swan was going to see Suge on lawyer visits. Suge could have been getting some pussy. Excuse my friend.
But you're telling the truth, homie, for real. No joke. You're telling the truth.
Pardon my French. He could have used that opportunity to have sex, right? Not necessarily draw up a plan to kill Biggie, like he knew Biggie was going to be in town and knew where Biggie's and he's in jail, right? So I don't believe that. But once again, and my theory is Reggie and whoever allegedly took it upon themselves to kill Biggie for whatever. Now, I don't know if you know, there's interviews where Big is dissing Pac, where he's rapping at the radio station. He's doing, I think, Long Kiss Goodnight, which is a diss to Pac, right? So outside of him running around L.A. is already disrespectful to maybe those people on the death row side, right? But then again, they could be smart and just want to use it as retaliation. Second, right? which you may never seen. I don't know if you ever seen, you was watching back then, but on Rap City, when you see Biggie sitting in the park with Joe Clair, that was Biggie's last interview, and it aired that Saturday. During the day,
Damn, I know which one he talking about too, but I didn't know that was his last interview.
Yeah, right? Joe Clair asks Biggie in that interview. So you know, Tupac saying that, you know, he has sex with Faith. And Big replies, if he did, he won't no more. I'm like, no, Big, no. You can't say that in Cali. That night, his ass was dead. That show, now